Holy shit. We're back. It's been quite some time, guys.
Oh,
Always.
man.
Welcome to the Cannonballs podcast. As always, I'm one of your hosts, Dane Cannon, co-host, and with me today is
Your boy, Jake Bowles on the mic. 1-2. Yeah, like Dane said, we took a little hiatus. Took a month off, just got busy with the holidays and
anniversaries and work,
all that
and
good stuff.
all that stuff.
But yeah, we missed a lot, but we're back just in time to cover. Well, we didn't give our predictions for the playoffs. I'll give my predictions. Dane, we both didn't do too hot for the first round, but we're back for the playoffs. We missed a lot of news. Maybe we'll sprinkle it here, then and there. Maybe after the playoffs, Super Bowl or whatever. But yeah, we're back for the playoffs, and man, what a snooze fest! What a snooze fest!
Yeah, Jake and I were talking before the recording. This has been one of the worst wild card years that I can remember in recent memory, at least the last 5 years. Like, these games were all blowouts except one game, and that game was actually phenomenal. The Detroit Lions and the Los Angeles Rams, that was an excellent game. The storyline behind it was great. Both quarterbacks got traded to each other's teams. Detroit hadn't won a playoff game in 32 or 31 years, whatever it was. Text messages hadn't even been a thing. No memes had been around to talk about the Detroit Lions winning. Eminem was there. It was a back and forth affair. Both offenses looked great. Both defenses stepped up when they needed to. And it came down to a point, which was awesome. It was a great game. But we'll get into each game, guys. We're going to kind of do what we've been doing before we took our little hiatus, where we kind of wrap everything in one episode. Luckily, this will be a lot shorter because we're only going to be covering the wild card weekend, and then we're just going to give our predictions for the divisional round. We can sprinkle in some stuff before wild card weekend, some firings, job openings, that kind of stuff, if you wanted to talk about that, Jake, because this is one of the most significant years that I can remember where a lot of big name head coaches are now available to a lot of teams. There's a lot of head coaching positions available. There's a lot of rumors, speculations, a lot of smoke, and where there's smoke, there's fire. So we'll get into a little bit of that, guys, but stay tuned. There's going to be no power rankings. We're not doing the regular season anymore. And unfortunately, we do apologize, guys, for the few of you who do listen to us. We weren't around to give our power rankings and predictions throughout the rest of the season. But, life happens. And if we can't make an income off this, we can't do this full time. So, Jake, I'm ready to get going into it whenever you are. We can start wherever you want.
Yep. Let's do it. We might as well just get started with the first game of, what is this, the 2024 playoffs, or is it the 2023 playoffs?
2023/24.
All right. Yeah, it was a upset, I would say. A lot of people picked the Browns. A lot of people didn't give the Texans a chance.
I picked the Browns.
I picked the Browns as well. And, I kind of thought that number one defense would just kind of be too tough in the moment for a rookie quarterback and rookie head coach. And holy fuck, we were wrong. Completely wrong. The Texans just manhandled, cream pied the Cleveland Browns. They beat them 45-14. And it was close for like the first quarter and a half, right? And then Joe Flacco threw a couple picks, threw back-to-back pick sixes, and CJ Stroud had a really good game. No turnovers. He had 3 touchdowns. He did what we were accustomed to seeing him do in the regular season. If you don't think he's going to win Rookie of the Year, I think you need to go back and watch the tape, watch his highlights, watch everything, because he definitely deserves it. He balled out, and they beat a good Browns team. I was a little shocked. I thought the Browns would be able to do a little bit more on the offense, but we kind of saw this with Joe Flacco last year. Like, he would have a couple games with the Jets, where he was like, "Oh, they should just start him," and then boom, would fall flat on his face. And unfortunately for Browns fans, he fell flat on his face in the playoffs.
Not only
Hard,
that, so did the defense, though. The defense, which was statistically the number one defense throughout the
yeah.
entirety of the season, just did not look competent. They were struggling against the pass. They struggled against the run. They struggled in all three phases. Even special teams wasn't great for them. And I was impressed with CJ Stroud. Like, you touched on everything. Like, he looked like a quarterback who's seasoned. It looks like he's been there before. Like, D'Amico Ryans did a hell of a job with this team. And he's a rookie head coach, a rookie quarterback, a banged up offensive line, getting them to the playoffs. Like, there was a point in time when they had to shuffle the offensive line every game. It was crazy. And they still made it. The defense balled out. And yeah, man, he just got this Texans defense to play with a lot of grit. And, it was like you said, it was an upset win, but it was a hell of a victory for them, and they look good. And they're going to be playing. Are they playing the
Baltimore Ravens?
They are playing the Ravens. Yeah, that's going to be a pretty good matchup. So, at least on paper, it looks like it might be. But yeah, good win for the Texans.
Yeah, not only that, we didn't even get to discuss it, but they ended up winning the division.
Yeah.
They sent Jacksonville home.
After Jacksonville had a 99% chance of making the playoffs after week 12.
Yeah, so that's so impressive. I mean, you win the division, and I think I freaking said something along the lines, if the Texans win this division, I'll fucking do something, because I just couldn't see it happening, like with the Jags. But the Jags completely imploded on themselves. I think they pulled an Eagles. They lost like 7 of their last 8 or some shit like that. It was ridiculous. But the Texans, man, D'Amico, you want to talk about Rookie of the Year? I think he deserves Coach of the Year, or at least to be talked about in the running for it. So congratulations, Texans, man. Like, you guys are an up and coming team for sure. I hope it is not a flash in the pan. I hope it's a thing a thing that we'll see for years to come.
Agreed.
All right. Next game. Another boring one. I picked the Chiefs. What did you pick, Dane?
So I picked the Chiefs as well. Okay. For the first game, we both picked the Browns, so we're 1 for 1 at this point in time. I had seen a stat where it was like the Dolphins were 0-10 in any time they had played in a game that was under like 40 degrees or some ridiculous like temperature stat like that. I didn't want to take too much into account, but after seeing Arrowhead Field and Arrowhead Stadium, I was like, okay, this is going to be challenging. Patrick Mahomes, he's more accustomed to winning in playoffs, even though I don't think the Chiefs team is that great. They pulled through. Rashee Rice looked really good. Patrick Mahomes had himself a pretty decent day, 262, only 1 touchdown. Isaiah Pacheco got going, and the defense balled out, man. Like, the Dolphins couldn't do anything on offense, and I think the weather did play a factor. I mean, with the wind chill, I think it was minus 24 degrees. So it's like one of the coldest games in NFL history. I think it's like top 5 now. But
I think it was the fourth coldest.
Yeah. So it was, the weather definitely didn't help the Dolphins, but they looked like they didn't come to play. Tua didn't look like he came to play. 199 and 1. And an interception as well. They couldn't get anything going on the ground. They had the most rushing yards was Raheem Mostert with 33. Tyreek Hill was the only player who somewhat did anything. He had the touchdown, and it was 62 yards through the air. But overall, man, it was, like you said, it was a snooze fest. It was a one-sided affair. The Kansas City Chiefs just dominated this game, and not much else to say, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting that 2 teams, we'll talk about one in a little bit, but the 2 teams that I had most fraud alert were the Dolphins and the Cowboys. Yeah. And, both those teams only beat I think the Cowboys beat like maybe 2 above 500 teams. The Dolphins didn't beat a single over 500 team. And so it was like, I was saying it before we took our little break, like, you got to pump the brakes a little bit, I think, on the Dolphins. Like, I don't think they're that good. And, it showed. And I'll say this, like, injuries, like, affected them a lot. Like, they were down, like, their top 3 pass rushers and, their safeties, their corners. they were hurt all over the place on the defense. So that was a bummer. But the biggest thing about this is, what do the Dolphins do with Tua? Because this is a contract year for him, or this was a like they're gonna have to sign him. They're
I
gonna have to figure
I
out.
I had heard that the contract negotiations were that they wanted to extend him, that they wanted him to be the franchise guy. That's what I had heard. That's the rumor that's going around the league, at least from the sources that I've seen.
Yeah, I in my opinion, I think they should sign him because quarterbacks are not easy to come by. Like it's a crapshoot for the most time if you're drafting quarterbacks, right? And Tua can perform. Like he was at one point in the MVP conversation.
100%.
My thing is, I hope they don't pull a Daniel Jones or a New York Giants and sign him to a fat contract like they did Daniel Jones when he really hasn't proved a whole lot. If that makes any sense.
No, it does. I would take Tua over Daniel Jones any day of the week, but I agree. I don't think he should be getting top dollar money. Like I don't think that his contract should be the next biggest contract. I don't think that that's the way that they should be going about this. I think that he should be maybe a top 10 quarterback because I mean, he is talented, don't get me wrong, but there are concerns, especially when it comes to his health, the longevity of his career. He's sustained a shit ton of head injuries in the previous years that he played. This is the first year he made it through the entire season without like missing a game. So good for him, at least on that part. I know that he did a lot of work in the offseason preparing for that, the way that he would fall, doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu, that kind of stuff. But it was weird. It was kind of like a tale of two halves with Tua this year. We saw the MVP season and then it just tapered off. And then it was just kind of coming back to what we had seen from Tua previously. So I don't think Tua's worth top dollar money, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that he is talented. I think that he can read a defense phenomenally. I think that the processing is there. It's just the physical limitations of Tua, I think, taper and limit his expectations a little bit.
Yeah. But Chiefs, they won. Yeah, man, playoff Chiefs are different. I've learned going against the Patriots my entire life that when you go against the best, probably gonna lose. So
mess with the bull, you get the horns.
Yep. So let's go on to the Sunday games.
Jesus Christ.
Not much better. I think everybody and their mom picked the Dallas Cowboys to win. They, however, did not.
I know I picked the Cowboys, and they did not perform.
Yeah, the Green Bay Packers absolutely cream pied them 48-32. And
it was not as close as the score indicated. Like, even though that's a pretty good margin, yeah, it was garbage time. At one point, Matt LaFleur even took out his starters. Aaron Jones was out. Jordan Love was out. His starting defense was out. And then Dallas came back and made it a little bit interesting with some time left. And then Green Bay just took the game just took the wind out of their sail. It was a dominant performance. Jordan Love, he looked great. Man. It was crazy. This season it was a roller coaster for Green Bay fans. I think they started off the season 2-5.
Yeah.
And Jordan Love looked like one of the worst quarterbacks. Me and you bashed him. We were talking about how Jordan Love looked atrocious, one of the worst quarterbacks, and then he proved us wrong. He won a playoff game. He's won more playoff games than Justin Herbert, which is kind of crazy to think about. But I think that a lot of this comes down to coaching. Some of the schematics that Matt LaFleur cooked up in his playbook was genius. I mean, I have never seen so many wide open wide receivers in my life. And this is against supposedly a top 5 defense. This reminded me, it was very reminiscent of the Cleveland Brown game. Like, this defense did not perform or meet expectations. Dak looked atrocious. He was throwing interceptions. And then his touchdowns came in garbage time. Yeah, pick sixes. It was bad, man. Like, Green Bay they came to play, and Dallas did not. This is who them boys. They are not playoff caliber, like, Cowboys. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, every year it's the same story for the last like decade. It feels like they have a great regular season and then they fall short in the playoffs. I mean, they won a wild card game last year or whatever against Tampa Bay, but this year they got the shit beat out of them, man. it was bad. I very impressed with Green
Yeah,
Bay. Defense looked great, offense looked great. So Dallas
yeah.
just did not
I
perform.
Packers just took advantage. Yeah, I got to give flowers to Jordan Love. He was wheeling and dealing, looked like fucking Joe Montana out there. Um, yeah, man, I don't know. Like I mean, a healthy Aaron Jones. This is a young team. They have speed in the wide receiver room for sure. And Jordan Love was just on it, man. I think that was really, and the defense. The defense stepped up for sure. They were looking really bad towards the end of the year, and that's why one of the reasons I picked the Cowboys to win. And I think a lot of people did, but they stepped the fuck up, dude. And
Yeah.
wow, I was impressed with them.
Not only that, dude, the run game. What happened
Oh
to
yeah,
Dallas's rush defense? Dallas had no answers for Aaron Jones. Like it looked like they could get 10 yards on any given run.
yeah,
It was
and
bad, man.
yeah, it was crazy. Uh, and the question that comes up is where do the Cowboys go from here? And I hear a lot of people saying they should fire Mike McCarthy. Dan Quinn's, supposedly talking to the Seattle Seahawks to be their next head coach.
Did you see that the Chargers rescinded their application to interview Dan Quinn?
Really?
Yeah. I don't know if it was after the game. So I'm
Excuse
assuming it's
me.
because of the performance of Dallas and they didn't want to have another repeat with Brandon Staley, which I'm happy about. It's like I think Dan Quinn could build a good team. I really do. Like I think that he could get good coordinators. He's done it before. He's gone to the Super Bowl, but he choked. So I don't know. Sorry, a little off track.
No, you're good. Do you think the Cowboys try to make a run for Belichick?
I think it's a possibility. I really do think Jerry Jones is going to have to think about this and consider whether or not McCarthy's right for the job.
Yeah.
Something's got to change in Dallas because it is the same story year in and year out. It's very similar to Chargers. The Chargers, the chargering way. It's the same thing with Dallas playoffs. Like they shoot themselves in the foot, they choke. They're professional chokers, just like the Chargers, except the Chargers do it year round. Cowboys do it in playoffs, and the Chargers did in playoffs too. But I feel for Dallas fans because they're supposed to be one of the top teams in the NFL, and then it just slips away from them every
Yeah.
year. So I do think that change needs to be brought to the organization. I do think that Mike McCarthy may have coached his last game as a Dallas Cowboy head coach. But yeah, it's hard, man.
Yeah,
Because you
I don't
also have
know.
Vrabel out there. You could bring in Vrabel.
I don't know if Vrabel's that much of an upgrade compared to Mike McCarthy, to be honest. I think Vrabel's a great coach, but McCarthy, that's 3 seasons in a row of 12-5 for the Cowboys. That's great. Like so many teams would love to have that. I mean, the fact that they choke in the playoffs every year, like, all right, that's one thing, but like at least you're getting to the playoffs with a great record and a top 3 seeding like the last 3 years, right? I think he stays if they can't land Belichick or like Harbaugh or something. Like if they can't land those two guys, I think he stays because I just don't see it. I think they need an upgrade, but if they can't get it like with Belichick, then what's the point? I think they should just keep
I
going.
disagree slightly. Two things. Belichick is 72 years old. So how much longer is he going to be coaching for? No coach
Yeah.
is. I think the oldest coach was 73 or 74 years old. So say Belichick makes it to 76. That's only 4 more years. And it's like there are going to have to be some roster construction changes with Dallas. They're going to have to move money. I mean, Jerry Jones, he can put as much money into the team as he wants. That's not an issue. But one thing that I will say about Vrabel is Tennessee, he made it to the AFC Championship game with Ryan Tannehill. And
Mm-hmm.
other than that, like his defense was absolutely demolished and they still fought hard. He still had grit. He took the Jags out of the playoffs this year and they were dealing with injuries this year as well. Like they've been one of the more injured teams the last 2 seasons. So I think that there is some of that comes into play. Plus, he had to do it with a rookie quarterback. I still think Vrabel's a hell of a coach. I think Vrabel gets that defense playing harder than almost any team out there, especially with backups in. Like you expect them to get blown out and then they drag you through the mud. And I think he can build a staff. So I think
Yeah.
Vrabel is still one of the top candidates. I would have him over Dan Quinn any day personally. So it's hard to say. I don't know, man. Like Dallas can throw more money at any head coach than any other team in the NFL because of how much money they have, the ownership.
Mm-hmm.
So if they really wanted a head coach, they could get anyone if they threw their, checkbook out there.
Yeah. The last question about the Cowboys. Where do we go with Dak Prescott?
Oh man. It's hard to say because how many more years is he under contract for?
I think I heard something like he's wanting an extension, and like you can't give him top tier money after this, man. After 3 years in a row.
Yeah,
and even
good.
Even he was the top 3 at the end of the year. He was in the MVP conversation. It was like, I thought whatever. I have my opinions about that, but like he was in the top 3. He was playing at an elite level. Yeah, they were playing freaking bad teams, but he was still playing at an elite level. And it's just like right when it comes to playoffs, boom, choke. Yeah, I don't know what they do with him. I mean, if I'm the Cowboys, I don't want to re-sign him to a giant contract. Like, why? For more heartbreaks? Like
it's tough also because they have one of the top offensive lines. They have one of the best wide receivers in the entire NFL in CeeDee Lamb. They have good tight ends. I thought that they had a really good running back in Tony Pollard, but he didn't have a great year by any means. So
it's like it's not even a personnel issue. Like they have talent everywhere. They have 3 all-pros on the line. They have an all-pro wide receiver. They have 2 really good young tight ends. Dak Prescott was second team all-pro, which I shouldn't think. I don't think he deserved it, but whatever. And then they have a couple all-pros on the defense. Like they have talent. Like I don't want to hear they need more talent. They have all the talent in the world. And I guess it's just really, it comes down to coaching or being prepared or organization culture. Cause I don't know what it is. And it keeps happening over and over again. So it's gotta be something deeper than the players.
Yeah, no, I definitely think a lot of it does come down to coaching. Because, I mean, we saw it with the Eagles, which we will talk about, but it's like they lost their offensive and defensive coordinator, and then we saw it they still performed really well. They started off, 10-1? Or like 9-1, whatever it was, and then they lost like 5 or 6 games in a row, and then they lost their playoff game, which we'll talk about, but it's like coaching is a huge important piece of the puzzle. Like players can only do so much. Like obviously the players are the ones out there, they're the ones making the plays, they're the ones that are like putting the scheme into effect. But like if they're not being coached properly and put into the right positions, we see it tumble. And I think a lot of it's coaching. So honestly, I would probably get rid of McCarthy personally.
Yeah,
and then I wouldn't extend Dak. They're always going to be good though, so it's not like you're going to get like a top 5 pick, and so you're not going to get one of the top tier quarterbacks unless you like traded up and gave like a haul for it. So Trey it's Lance. Like they possibly, but I mean they could possibly go after like a Michael Penix or a Bo Nix this year if they wanted to like take a stab in the dark.
Yeah. I don't know. It's going to be a very interesting season for the Cowboys, or off season. Yes. Very, very interesting. All right, let's get on to the only good game of the weekend.
Yes.
I picked the Rams. I believe you picked the Lions.
I did pick the Lions. Yep.
Yeah, and honestly, it could have gone either way. It was a very close game, so I'm not too upset about picking the Rams. But you know what? I'm very happy that the Lions won. The Detroit Lions beat the Rams 24-23, and so many storylines in this game. We all know the trade that happened between these two teams, changed these teams forever. And holy crap, it was a great game. Where do I start? I mean, honestly, like both quarterbacks were playing pretty good. Puka Nacua had a great game. Really, the entire Lions team had a great game. The defense, well, I'm not going to say the defense, the secondary, but the D-line got after it. They stopped the run. They got after Stafford, but the secondary kind of got torched. But it really came down to a couple of defensive plays on the Lions, and they ended up stopping the Rams, and they ended up winning the game. And good for the Lions, man. Like you said earlier, first time in like 30 years or whatever they've won a playoff game. Like that's absurd. Man, yeah, the Lions are a fun team. Definitely, I'm rooting for them as long as they don't play my team. But yeah, it was a fun game.
Yeah, like you said, both quarterbacks were dealing. I think that in this game there might have been a couple missed penalties, but they let the players play, which I kind of like. So it depends on like which side you're rooting from, because like there was one play in particular, like I'm so used to there being like roughing the passer calls left and right for like pussy shit. I don't know if I can say that word, but like pusillanimous shit. And then there was one play where I thought Matthew Stafford was out. Like his eyes were
scary.
And that, in my opinion, that should have been a roughing the passer. I don't think that it would have changed the trajectory of the game, in my opinion, because then you would have had to put Carson Wentz in, and then who knows if they would have scored. It's the shoulda, coulda, woulda. But there were some missed penalties, but overall, they let the players play, and it turned out to be a great game. And I think here's the thing with the Rams, this was supposed to be a rebuild year. Like this was a year that we thought that they were going to be a bottom 5 team, and they made it to playoffs. They won 10 games. Puka Nacua is now a star. Kyron Williams is now a star. If Matthew Stafford's healthy and he doesn't turn the ball over, he's really good. They still have Cooper Kupp. The defense balled out. Byron Young, Aaron Donald. It's crazy, man. Like I did not expect the Rams to be this good, and they were competitive. Yeah. And I think that they should be impressed and proud. I think Sean McVay is a great head coach. He got his players. It was one of the youngest rosters in the NFL to make the playoffs other than Green Bay. Green Bay was the youngest. Yeah. And it was overall great. Jared Goff on the other side of the ball. Jared Goff had a great game. Like you said, the defensive line, Aiden Hutchinson, they got after it. Yeah, man. Amon-Ra, Jahmyr Gibbs, Josh Reynolds, Sam Laporta didn't really do much this game, but it was a fun game. This was the game of the week by far. So good win for the Lions.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, everybody on the Lions balled out, Montgomery, Gibbs. And I want to emphasize Josh Reynolds. He was tearing the Rams secondary up in the first half. The Rams should be extremely proud. They're a very young team. They have a lot of talent on that team. And they also have the two, they have a Hall of Fame D tackle in Aaron Donald, and I guess you could say Hall of Fame Matt Stafford. Yeah, would you call Matt Stafford a Hall of Famer?
He won a Super Bowl now. I definitely think that he's one of the better quarterbacks. It's tough. I think it's still up in the air because his career in Detroit never really came to fruition. It is hard, but
yeah,
I'd say he's in the conversation. I don't know if I would put him in the Hall of Fame, but I think that he has
might have to wait a little bit.
Yeah,
but yeah, man, the Rams are young and up and coming, and the Lions, they're up and coming right now, man. Like I think they could, if Goff plays like he did this weekend, they could definitely make it to the Super Bowl. There's no doubt in my mind.
Campbell's call to like win the game. What a ballsy motherfucker. Didn't he go for it on 4th down in their own territory with like 2 minutes left? Or am I tripping? Am I thinking of a different game?
I know he did something in this game. It felt like such a long weekend.
I swear they went for it on like a 4th down or whatever. Like they should have punted the ball on their own turf, but then they converted, and then that's when they were able to kneel it. Maybe I'm thinking of a different year, but either way.
I could see it. I like Dan Campbell. He's definitely a ballsy coach. And, he gets rewarded for it by his team winning. They do have a date with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at home. So, they're very happy that the Cowboys lost. And, they're only, 2 games away from the Super Bowl. So good for the Lions, man. They have lived up to the hype 100%. All right, this next game, not a whole lot to talk about. But it was a playoff game. I picked the Bills to win. I believe you did as well.
Yep.
Yeah, and they did. They beat the Steelers 31-17. and it was I mean, the Bills were up 21-0 at one point. So they were just driving all over the Steelers.
Pittsburgh started off on the wrong foot with the turnover. I think they had in my opinion, it should have been a fumble recovered by Buffalo, but I guess it did doink the helmet of the player who was out of bounds for the other turnover. Too. But either way, it was prime Josh Allen. Josh Allen had the 52-yard touchdown run. He was wheeling and dealing, throwing touchdowns to both of his tight ends in the beginning of the game. Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid. And then the defense just stepped up. Like, Pittsburgh couldn't really do anything. There was a moment where I thought Pittsburgh might make it a little interesting. I think it was 21-10 at one point, and then it was just all Bills after that. Like, Pittsburgh couldn't really do anything, and then it just turned into a snowball effect, kind of like it was in the stadium, and the Bills just ran away with it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have too much to say. I just have like some remarks about the Bills. We didn't really get to talk about them in the last season, but I thought they could go on a run. I thought they would be a dangerous team, and they were. They ended up winning the division, and
I think they won their last 5 games, and now a playoff game.
Dude, and in my opinion, I think the Bills are the most dangerous team in the playoffs, and that's don't get that confused with best. I think they're just the most dangerous. They've played probably 6 playoff games in a row now, and because they needed to win all these games to make it into playoffs and win the division. They're dangerous, man. If Josh Allen doesn't turn the ball over, and the fact that they have developed this run game, it's completely changed the trajectory of this team.
Yep.
They're still dealing with quite a bit of injuries on the defense, but Bills are dangerous, man. They are dangerous.
Agreed. 100%.
And the Steelers, man, another first round exit. I don't even know what to say. It's kind of like the opposite, not the opposite, but it's kind of like the same thing with Mike McCarthy. You've had what? How long has Tomlin been the coach? 10 years? Probably longer.
Yeah.
And he's never had a losing season. This is 3 seasons in a row where they made the playoffs, right?
I don't think they made it last year. I think they made it the year before.
Oh, well, I mean, I know that
they were playoffs. I know that they were like an early exit from the Chiefs. I think they played the Chiefs in like wild card or something like that.
Yeah, so it's kind of been the same story with the Steelers. Unfortunately, they were without TJ Watt. But they need to get a quarterback, man. I don't think Kenny Pickett is the answer.
And you can't go into a playoff game with Mason Rudolph.
Yeah, Mason Rudolph definitely isn't the answer. So they need to do something because they have the weapons, and they have the weapons. They kind of developed a little bit of a run game, Warren and Najee Harris, and they have a good defense and good coaching. So it's just really the quarterback for them. But another early round exit, and good for the Bills on to play the Chiefs. All right, and the last game of the wild card weekend. Another blowout. Yay, my favorite. I picked the Bucks to win. I believe you picked the Eagles.
I did.
Yeah. And the Bucks absolutely cream pied the Philadelphia Eagles 32-9. Yeah,
Baker
we really
Mayfield,
didn't get,
like you said, looked like Dan Marino out there, just wheeling and dealing. Rashad White looked great. Kate Otten, the defense.
Yeah.
Eagles couldn't do anything, man.
Dude, the Eagles defense. We didn't get to talk about the Eagles, but they have lost like 6 of their last 7. They were 10-1, and once they played the Niners, everything went downhill. I mean, they were dealing with some injuries. They didn't have AJ Brown in this game.
Yeah,
but I mean, this just kind of goes with the argument, like the argument of like against Brock Purdy, like, oh, he's only good because of his weapons. Well, yeah, I mean, he's good, and he needs his weapons. It's the same thing with Jalen Hurts. Like, he's good, but he needs his weapons, and he didn't have a great game.
Devontae, I think a lot of this comes down to coaching as well. Like I prefaced earlier in the video, the Eagles are a prime example of why good coaching is so important, kind of like with Dallas. But with the Eagles, they lost their offensive and defensive coordinator. Shane Steichen ended up going to Indy, and then their defensive coordinator ended up Gannon ended up being the coach of the Arizona Cardinals. And then we saw, like, even when the Eagles were winning, we both said, like, they're just playing complementary football, but they don't look dominant in any means. Like, one side of the ball doesn't look dominant. Both sides of the ball don't look dominant. And then it came to bite them in the butt. Like, they got figured out. They were predictable. Like you said, they were dealing with a little bit of injuries. AJ Brown wasn't out there in this game. But even when he was out there, the offense was bad, man. And like, they had one of the best offensive lines. The tush push got stopped tonight, which I was surprised with. Oh my God. First time I've ever seen it get stopped. And I don't know, man. It just fell apart for the Philadelphia Eagles. The defense was atrocious. I think it was historically bad. I think it was one of the worst defenses statistically in NFL history. And it's not because of personnel. Like, they've been drafting really well. Like, they have players all over the field, and then they just couldn't put it together.
Well, I would say I would disagree a little bit on that. I think the secondary was dealing with injuries, but besides Darius Slay and then the linebacking core, the D line is really good. The D line was really good. They have a lot of young talent and kind of getting older talent, honestly, and that goes the same way on the offensive line. But man, the Eagles are just they need to be studied. They need to be studied. And it's crazy because, you know, you go into the offseason and you just pay Jalen Hurts buku bucks. But, you know, does Kelsey stay around for another year? He was already thinking about retiring. You know, a lot of their offensive linemen were getting up there in age. And, you know, and then there's already Philly fans clamoring for Sirianni's job. Yeah, so I don't know, man. I don't think they should fire him. I think he has a little bit of leeway just for taking them to the Super Bowl.
Well, yeah, I think what's going to happen with Sirianni is he's going to take the approach that Brandon Staley did. I think he's going to fire his coordinators and then try and hire new ones. And if it doesn't work out again, then I think he's out, because Philly is one of the toughest places to coach. Like, you're loved one moment when you're doing well, but when you're doing bad, you are hated. Philly fans are notorious for that. And I think that management's going to just look at that and just be like, even though you took us to a Super Bowl, if you don't perform or meet expectations next year, you're out. I think that he's around for another year. I mean, they still won 11 games, but the second half of the season was god awful. Like you said, they lost 6 games in a row or whatever it was after they lost to the Niners, or they won one game and lost like 5, whatever it was. But yeah, man, it was surprising. The Eagles were not in this game ever. And credit to Tampa Bay, credit to Todd Bowles, credit to that defense, credit to that offense. They had a good game plan and shut them down, man. So good win for Tampa.
Yeah, it was crazy to like watching this game, and I was like, this is very similar to the Packers game, the Packers-Cowboys game. Like, they pretty much did the same thing, except I think the Cowboys were a little bit better than the Eagles.
I agree.
But yeah, it's going to be interesting for another. It's going to be another interesting offseason for the Eagles. Yeah, man, I don't know, dude, because they have talent. They do have the talent. They just need to hire like really good offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators, or sign Matt Patricia to the longest tenured contract ever.
Bring back Matt Rule to the NFL. Take him from Nebraska.
Yeah, dude. Hell yeah. So Dan and I both went 3 out of 6. So not so good. But let's get into the divisional round predictions, Dane.
Let's do it.
All right, we're going to start with Saturday games. Congratulations to the Green Bay Packers for being the Cowboys. But you signed a date with the number 1 seed in Levi's, or at Levi's, against the San Francisco 49ers. Didn't even get to talk to them.
The later slot game?
I thought they were the earlier slot.
No, they're 5:15.
You're right.
We can start with them
Rewind.
if you want.
No. We'll go in order. All
Okay.
right, let's go. We'll go to the AFC matchup. Houston Texans. They are traveling. They signed a deal or a date with the Baltimore Ravens, the other number one seed in Baltimore at 1:30. This is gonna be a fun game, man.
I want to say this. As much as I love Cleveland's defense, I don't think Baltimore has the same outcome. I think that this defense really makes it difficult for CJ Stroud. I love CJ
So
Stroud.
do I.
I love the Texans. And I think that Lamar Jackson, I think he could have some hiccups. And I think the Texans defense can like really make it hard for Lamar Jackson. However, I don't think Baltimore's defense is going to do what Cleveland did. And I think that they're going to be able to like really minimize what CJ Stroud is able to do. And because of that, I think it's going to give Lamar Jackson more opportunities. So I'm going to go Ravens.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference from the Ravens to the Browns is they have a Super Bowl winning head coach on their team. They're going to be prepared. They're going to be ready for this team. They know that the Texans are dangerous. I think there is a world where the Texans do upset them, but
I agree.
Not in this world though. I think the Ravens are just too good right now. And I think this game either goes blowout. Honestly, I think it's a blowout from the Ravens. They blow out the Texans, or it's a close game. I don't think there's anything in between with this one. But yeah, I'm gonna take the Ravens here.
Yeah.
But it would be cool if the Texans won. I would not mind it.
Agreed. It would be a wild story if the Texans ended up making it to the AFC Championship game with a rookie quarterback and a rookie head coach.
Holy crap. All right. Now we'll go to the game I mentioned earlier. We got the Green Bay Packers traveling to the San Francisco 49ers. Yeah, same thing. The 49ers aren't the Cowboys. They have a really good head coach who has established winning culture for years now.
Especially in the playoffs. Like they are not a Cowboys playoff team.
Yeah, they're not the Cowboys. They have a better defense than the Cowboys. They have a better offense than the Cowboys, better coaching than the Cowboys. Yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit of a closer game than probably people think. I think Green Bay will probably, make it a little bit interesting, but I think the Niners will just run away with it towards the end. I probably like a 30-17 game. But I'm taking the 49ers.
I'm not even going to complicate this one. We're used to seeing Dallas disappoint. We're used to seeing San Francisco succeed, especially in the divisional round. I think I'm having a stroke. I'm like stuttering all over my words. Jesus Christ. But yeah, I'm going to go San Francisco here. They've proven that they can win in the playoffs. They've made it to the Super Bowl a couple times. They've made it to the NFC Championship game, like 4 years in a row, 3 years in a row.
3 out of 4.
Like
3 out of 4.
So yeah, I'm going to go 49ers, and history usually repeats itself. And we've seen Green Bay play San Francisco multiple times in the playoffs, even with Aaron Rodgers, and it didn't end well. Yeah, I'm going 49ers, man.
Yeah, and another thing, Matt LaFleur is under the whole Shanahan tree. Like, Shanahan knows how to play against it, knows the weaknesses, and Shanahan is 3-0 against LaFleur, so a little bit of an advantage. But I think it's going to be a somewhat close game in the beginning. All right, Sunday matchups. It's going to be a pretty interesting one. We got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Detroit Lions. I like this one. Honestly,
I do too.
I want to say this real quick. I want to apologize to Tampa Bay and Tampa Bay fans. At the beginning of the season, we had them as the 31st, 32nd ranked teams. And holy shit, did they exceed expectations. This is Baker Mayfield's best season as a professional. And the Bucs, They were in there the whole time. They definitely benefited from an easy division or a close division, but they're dangerous, man. I mean, they're 2 years away from a Super Bowl or 2 years removed from a Super Bowl, and they still have a lot of those core pieces on the defense. They still have Mike Evans. They still have Chris Godwin, and not only that, two things: Baker Mayfield and Rashad White are stepping the fuck up this year. Like Rashad White he almost rushed for 1,000 yards, and he ran all over the Eagles defense. I do think the Lions have a better defense than the Eagles,
especially when it comes to a run defense. Like the Detroit rush defense is pretty stacked.
Yeah, but where they can get beat is through the air. So I think this is going to be a high scoring game, but I'm going to take the Lions.
Yeah, the last time they played, because they did play in the regular season this year, Detroit kind of just beat the crap out of them. But I do agree. I think it is a different Tampa Bay team at this point in the season. I think it is going to be a closer game. You know, you're not going to have to worry about the weather. They kind of are going to have to watch the film from the previous time they played and what happened, what went wrong, and kind of adjust to it. So I think that usually what we see is when a team loses one game and then they play them again, usually the team that lost is able to make adjustments, and it's either a much closer game or the team that lost wins. That's why it's so hard to win 2 games in a divisional matchup, because you're used to playing these teams. You're used to seeing what went wrong and correcting it. So I'm going to go Detroit as well. It's at home. I like the storyline. I'm rooting for the Lions. I'm rooting for Lion fans this year. But I wouldn't be terribly upset if Tampa Bay won, because I also like the story with Baker. You know, he's resurrecting his career right now. And so good for him. So is Goff. You know, Goff was kind of written off after leaving LA and then a couple bad seasons in Detroit. So, yeah, man, I think this is going to be an exciting game, but I'm going Detroit as well.
I'll say this. I think the Bucs have a defense that is more capable of causing the other quarterback to have a more terrible game. I think the Bucs defense is probably a little bit better than the Lions. I think the pass rush and the D line of the Lions is legit, but I don't know, man. That the Bucs defense, it's been good. You know, not the best this year, probably middle of the pack, but I don't know. If Jared Goff has one of those classic Jared Goff games, it's going to be a tragic way to end the season. So
yeah,
I hope it doesn't happen. I hope it's a high scoring affair.
I do too.
All right, next game, last game. For the 8th time, I believe, they're meeting. We got the Kansas City Chiefs traveling to the Buffalo Bills. Man, what more could you ask for? Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes.
Again.
Yeah, again.
They're used to playing each other.
Yeah. I'll let you take the reins on this one.
What's good about this game, unlike the previous meetings, is it's in Buffalo this time. Weather's not really going to be a factor because both teams are used to playing in the cold, but usually it is in Arrowhead, I believe. At least from what I can remember, is it's usually in Arrowhead. Maybe it was in Buffalo one year, but Josh Allen really wants to prove himself. They're on a hot streak. Kansas City was not that hot near the end of the season. I know that they just won a playoff game, but I'm going to go Bills here. I'm going to go with the home team. I'm going to go with the storyline that, you know, Josh Allen is tired of losing to Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs, because it's happened almost every year that they face each other, or it has happened every year that they face each other. And I think that Buffalo went into playoffs a lot hotter than Kansas City. I think they're riding the momentum. I like both defenses in this game. I like the Bills offense a lot more, I'll be honest, because the Chiefs offense has not impressed me throughout the entirety of this season. It just hasn't looked the same. Travis Kelce hasn't looked the same. The receiving core hasn't been the same. Isaiah Pacheco is like the best player other than Patrick Mahomes out there, and Travis Kelce, in my opinion. You know, you have a rookie wide receiver who's kind of taking the reins as the leading wide receiver, and I don't think that's going to be enough against Buffalo this year. I'm going Bills.
Yeah, and I'm not just agreeing with you. I also picked the Bills to win in my bracket. But yeah, I think it's because of the home field advantage. I think if it was an Arrowhead, I probably would have picked Kansas City, honestly, even with the way they have looked all year. But the thing is, this game's going to be solely on Josh Allen's shoulders, because the Kansas City Chiefs have a good defense and they're able to stop the run. And that is what the Bills have been loving to do. That's how they've won these last several games to get into the playoffs, to win the division. They have, you know, leaned on the run. And I think the Chiefs stop the run, or at least make it a lot less inefficient. And I think Josh Allen is going to have to take over in this game and have a, you know,
he's got to
MVP
limit the
type level game.
turnovers. Like, he cannot turn the ball over, which has been one of his biggest faults this year, is how many games he went in a row with throwing an interception. If he turns the ball over, which is very likely against this Chiefs defense, it's going to be a lot closer game than we think.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a close game in general. Just for the fact that Patrick Mahomes is on the other side. I hate to freaking, glaze him up, but he is the best quarterback, and he's going to do some weird shit, even with his wonky wide receivers. But I'm still taking the Bills here. They're just very hot for me. So,
I like it.
All
right, guys. Well, we did it in under an hour, so you're welcome. And guys, it's good to be back. It's good to be talking ball again. Just want to give you guys a heads up. Jake is going to be going into an academy coming up pretty soon, starting his career off in a different direction. So we'll see what the offseason holds. I might do some solo videos. If Jake is able to get on, maybe he can come on every once in a while, but we'll try and get some content out for you guys. The offseason, we don't have too much content generally, unless it's getting close to like the draft, or it's like right after the draft, training camp, our preseason predictions, all that kind of stuff. But stay tuned, guys. The drill. Follow us on our Instagram here. Like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on. Anything you can to do to help the podcast grow, we'd greatly appreciate. Jake, you have anything to add before we get out of here?
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to make, if we're going to be recording consistently, I'll try to be on, if we're keeping them under an hour, I'm sure I can make some time. So you won't see me, or you won't miss me too much, but yeah, you won't not see me, hopefully. But yeah, man, we're gonna continue. After the Super Bowl, we're gonna do draft. We're gonna do our draft things again.
And I do want to say this: we're doing draft a little bit differently. We're not gonna go team by team, player by player, pick by pick. I think this year, Jake, to change it up, to save us some time and some headache, we just go over the players that we liked the most that they draft. I think that that's a good direction to take it personally.
Yeah. I'm down for that. Make it a little bit easy on us. But with that being said, yeah, week 1 of the playoffs is over. Good luck to your teams. Go 49ers. My Super Bowl pick is still in play. Woohoo! Well, my Super Bowl pick from the beginning of the season, Dane.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine too. I picked the 49ers at the beginning of the season.
No, you didn't. You picked the Bengals.
Oh, that's right. I did pick the Bengals. Shit, you're right. My bad. Good call. I'm a liar, everyone. Jesus
You're a
Christ.
liar. That's okay. I'm a liar too, because I say the Texans wouldn't have won the division, and winning the division. You know what? But thanks for listening. As always, good luck to your teams, and thank you for listening. And as always, peace.